Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.net. Click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. You'll get a $1,000 cashback bonus on your first deposit of up to 50%. So if you put in $2,000, you'll have $3,000 to play with. You can also go straight to MyBookie.ag and put in the promo code TGT50. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I'd like to welcome in a man that's still a little sour about Kyle Guy winning a national championship because that's the last thing he had on him, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah, I'm now the third greatest player to ever come out of Lawrence Central High School. I mean, it is what it is. There's Kyle Guy, then there's Norm Sloan, and then there's me. So I have de-elevated myself one more notch, but great for Kyle Guy. What a great win for Virginia, and I'm thrilled to death for the kid. He played great. He earned it. He won it. So good for him.
All right, and we have in to talk a little Masters today. We have formerly with the Golf Channel. Now he has his own show, I think, in Anderson, Indiana, which you can hear on the gruelingtruth.net also. Help me welcome to the show, Brian Hammons. How you doing, Brian?
I am good. Yourself?
I'm always good. Anytime I'm hanging out with Steve Risley, it doesn't get any funnier than that. But let's talk about this. I'll tell you, before we get to the Masters, and I cut out and let the adults in the room talk about golf, I wanted to bring up the fact that last night I was watching the NBA TV, NBA Network, and they had the end of Dwayne Wade's career at home. And they asked him a question. If you remember when Kobe scored the 83 points on 61 shots or something, the announcer asked Dwayne Wade if he was going to take 50 shots to score 61 points tonight at Madison Square Garden to finish his career. And what I like about Dwayne Wade was his answer, Brian, and that was, I'm more about the team winning. I don't really care about that stuff.
Good for him. I didn't see that. Good for him.
Yeah, and when you look at it, I think that's him and Dirk Nowitzki are retiring, Steve, and I think that was what was great about him and Dirk. It always seemed like it was more important for them to win than anything else.
Yeah, I think that, I think Dwayne ended a 16-year career, and I think Dirk was 21 years. 21 years in the NBA, that's a long time to play professional basketball, the travel and these guys do. But I think those are two consummate players that played for their teams and not played for themselves. And I think that's a real loss for the NBA right now with both those guys. And they've got to find somebody to step up and fill those voids right away. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think it's really cool that when players go out on their own terms, guys that have had great careers and they can take a victory lap around the league and get the accolades from fans around the league. I was at the Pacers game the night that Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavericks were there for their only appearance at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And Dirk didn't get in the game till like a minute to play, but the place went nuts. And Steve, Indiana basketball fans are knowledgeable and they appreciate good players and good basketball no matter who they play for. And it was really cool to see the reaction. And I'm sure he got that every place he went when it was his final appearance in that building. So I think it's cool when players can go out on their own terms and take that victory lap around the league.
And I think Dirk ends up, in the top 6, I think, in all-time leading scorers in the NBA. If I'm not, I'm not Wikipediaing it right now or Googling it. I'm just trying to get off my top of the head. But I think he's in the top 6, well over 30,000 points scored. What a great player. And he did it all for one team. He did it for the Mavericks and played his entire career for the Mavericks, and just what a way to go out for him. So,
how often is that going to happen in the future? Where now that all the great players are forming their own super teams, we saw it with Reggie Miller and now Dirk. But how often is that going to happen moving forward when players are moving around like crazy, where a player sticks around with one team?
Yeah, Mike, is this kind of one of the last times you're going to see this happen? I mean,
every time we see it happen in any sport, everybody says, is this the last time we'll see it happen? It's probably not the last time we'll see it happen, but it's going to happen a lot less frequently. And I think that's what makes it special. I mean, Dirk Nowitzki is a guy that I'm sure at some point could have went to New York or L.A. or somewhere and made a ton of money, probably more than anybody. but he didn't. He decided to stay where he was. And I think guys forget what kind of legacy you can build. I mean, Dirk Nowitzki probably goes down as the greatest Dallas Maverick of all time now. And if you were Kevin Durant and you go to New York to be a Knick, I mean, there's such a history there that you're never going to do that playing 4 or 5 years, even if you win 3 or 4 NBA titles.
Yeah, and I think Dirk, I believe, from what I've read in previous times, Dirk is the most highest paid player in the history of the NBA. He's made more money, 21 years. Good God. He's been a superstar most of his career. But I think he's the highest paid player in the history, well over $500 million, if I'm not mistaken. And again, I'm Googling and I'm taking it off the top of my head, but I know that he's made a boatload of money. He's done well for himself, and he's represented himself well. He represented the Mavericks well. Cuban stuck with him and stayed with him and let him ride it out the way he wanted to ride it out. And like Brian said, you go out on your own terms, and that was gracious of Mark Cuban to let him do that.
Well, and the same thing with Dwayne Wade, because Wade played his entire career with the Miami Heat also, and Dwayne Wade was so great, he actually got Tom Crean to the Final Four at Marquette.
Although he did have a little foray with the Chicago Bulls, right? He went back home to
short
Chicago
time, I think
briefly.
he did. But basically, I mean, no, Wade, he played for the Cavs too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he went with LeBron with the Cavs for a while. So he bounced around toward the end of his career, but he went back to Miami so he could finish his career there.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's going to claim he was chasing a ring going to the Bulls in 2016.
No.
Yeah, and here's the deal: we Dwayne Wade's house was for sale out here in Calabasas, and my wife fell in love with the house, and it was right. And I was fell in love with it because it was right next to Khloe Kardashian's house. They lived next door to each other. I'm like thinking, okay, let's go look at this house, but it was over $10 million. And I said, Tia, we're only $10 million short of being able to buy this house, so why are we going to go look at it? But he's been a class act. He lives out here. His wife, what's Tiffany Haddish? Is that his wife's name?
I have no idea.
I don't watch TMZ.
Okay. Steve, come on. You already know who it is.
He's actually a member at the golf club I belong to out here. So, and he's a class act, and great for them to end their career. But I think the NBA has got to work to replace 2 great players.
And now
as it goes.
They can also replace Magic Johnson now.
Yeah, Brian, Magic Johnson. What do you think about that?
Well,
walks away from it.
Stop and think. He had a great playing career, one of the best players of all time, but he was really bad as a head coach, and that didn't last long. He had a really bad television show that got canceled very quickly, and he's proven that he was really bad as the president of the Lakers. It appears, certainly I'm an outsider, I'm just, on the outside looking in like everybody else, but it didn't appear that he was willing to put in the work that it takes to run an NBA team. That's a grind. It's not just a show up every now and then job. I mean, that's a grind. That's an everyday in your office grinding type of job. And it didn't appear that he was willing to put in that kind of work. But now, I mean, LeBron's been running the show anyway, so now it's just official, right?
Yeah. Now he can be head coach and GM like he has been everywhere else. Yeah,
they had Rob Pelinka out there, who was a personal hire of Jeannie Buss, who was he was an agent for somebody big. I can't remember who it was. Oh, Kobe. He was Kobe's agent. And then Jeannie Buss puts him in charge of the thing, and Magic's there kind of as a front man. But I think he just got. I'm going to call it LeBron. He just got LeBron. I just think he just got tired of the crap and the stuff going on. LeBron is out here. I live out here, so I know what's going on a little bit more on a day-to-day basis. He's making movies. He's making TV shows. His heart and soul really probably isn't in basketball anymore. What LeBron is, 35? Brian, is that Mike? Is that what?
Yeah,
35.
Yeah, he'll be turning 35.
So he's kind of just taking the money and he got his family out to Los Angeles, and he's got himself in the movie business, in the Hollywood showcase. And I just think it was a bad investment. I kind of get the feeling that LeBron or the Magic didn't want this to happen, but he got overrid on the whole deal. And here you go. And he said, I'm walking away from it. I'm done with it. And Magic, so he's wealthy. I mean, Magic's got more money than God. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but remember this.
Mike. I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that on
air.
Yeah. And you just said it again in an apology, so stop. All right, but this is my point, Steve. Dadgummit is much better. But when we look at this, I mean, Magic Johnson, I don't think this was too much for him. The dude's faced loads and loads of adversity his entire life. I mean, hell, he dealt with AIDS. But the thing that stands out to me here is this. He did this right before the last game of the season or right after the last game of the season. I think he just feels betrayed by people inside the Lakers organization. And if you watch these press conferences, I think that, Rob Pelinka may be the problem here.
Yeah, Magic was almost in tears. I watched it this morning. He was almost in tears about walking away from it. But, there's a guy that loves basketball. And I got the privilege to play against Magic Johnson. I traveled with him for a couple of weeks on a high school all-star team. And this is a kid that just loves nothing more than playing basketball. And that smile on his face was always genuine. And I think they finally beat it down. So that's unfortunate. The basketball, we had 3 big losses yesterday in all 3 of
That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where the Lakers go now. Does Jeannie Buss go out and hire a really good basketball mind to run that organization, or where do they go now? That's going to be the interesting follow-up.
Yeah, and the other problem is, can they get somebody to go there and play with LeBron to make them in the conversation again?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't appear that that's going to be a sought-after destination for the top-name free agents.
No, because it looks like Durant's going to the Knicks. So,
yeah.
Klay Thompson,
nobody
maybe
wants to play with LeBron. Yeah.
I mean,
nobody wants to play with Durant.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass anymore. But all right, guys,
play with him.
Let's go ahead and let's get to the Masters. And I want to let everybody know that around 12:40, we will have Sam McGinnis to talk NHL playoffs. So, Steve, go ahead and take it away with the Masters.
All right, Brian, here we go. What do you think? We got a lot of guys that are playing well. The first question I have for you, Brian, is: have they over-Tiger-proofed the course?
I don't think so. I mean, there's still low numbers out there. I'll just go back to last year. Jordan Spieth had 9 birdies on the day through 17 holes before he bogeyed 18, shot 64, and he was making a charge up the leaderboard. Could have won it had it not been for that bogey at 18. Ricky Fowler birdied 6 of his last 10 holes last year. He was in the mix. So there are still good numbers to be had out there. I don't think so. It's we've had some exciting finishes. The Tiger might think they've Tiger-proofed it because he hasn't won there in 14 years. But I don't think so.
They took the course from, I think, when Nicklaus won in '86. I think it was 6,900 yards, somewhere in that vicinity, and now it's like about 7,600 yards. Now I think they've expanded it that much.
Right.
And I thought that the great thing, and I remember in '86, I know you do too, that I think Nicklaus went 7 under on the last 9 holes to win the Masters in '86. Now you got guys that are just surviving and trying to hold on and win. I don't know. I thought each major had its own moniker, and I thought the thing about the Masters was always the back 9. Everybody, and Vern Lundquist said it greatly all the time that the tournament starts on the back 9 on Sunday. That's when the tournament really starts, and the guys are up front, they work themselves up, get there. And then you go out and you fire at the pins, you shoot, and you do things. You don't think that's gone away?
No, you might. The sub-air system, believe it or not, might have something to do with that because, previously, before the sub-air system, just for those listening at home, it's a mechanical thing that they put underneath the greens that just sucks the water out of the greens. So if you've got rain and the greens get softer, then you can throw at the flags, and then you can score better. Well, that's no longer an issue because the water just gets sucked right out of the greens, and you're always going to have hard and fast greens at Augusta National, no matter how much rain you've had. So maybe that's, contributed a little bit to what you perceive as, less drama on the back nine on Sunday. But I still think it's real exciting, and we've had great finishes there, and there's still good numbers to be made there, but there's also some big numbers to be made out there. Just ask Jordan Spieth what happened at 12 a few years ago that cost him a green jacket. So, to me, it's still the best tournament, and I don't think it's lost any of its luster because of the so-called tiger proofing.
Very fair. And the sub-air system, actually, you know where the sub-air system actually started? And you should know this.
I think Pinehurst, right?
Nope, Purdue.
Well,
Ross Stadium was they were the first one to put the sub-air system in to their football field. They stayed grass. They didn't go AstroTurf. They put the sub-air system in, and Purdue engineers actually created the sub-air system. So
that system's going to get used a lot this week because they've had a lot of rain in Augusta so far this week, and that could change the golf course, not so much the greens, but I think what this rain has done is it may eliminate some of the shorter hitters that would normally be in contention. I think it's going to be a bomber's paradise this week. So guys like Rory and Dustin and players like that are probably licking their chops liking these wetter conditions because the farther you carry it, the better off you are this week.
Well, let's get to that because the Masters seems to be the tournament that produces,
I lost you.
Just keep talking.
Yeah.
We had some technical difficulties. Actually, the internet dropped for a minute, so we'll add Steve back here in a second. So if you just want to continue on, or you can wait for Steve. Because there's nothing like talking hockey. We're still live, too.
Oh, we're still live.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for Steve to join?
The internet dropped.
Well, I missed his last question, but I was just talking about how I think how the weather this week eliminates some of the contenders, some players that would be contenders on a hard and fast golf course because now that it's wet and
we're live still, Steve. The internet lost connection. Brian's back on.
Okay.
So go ahead and continue.
All righty, good. All right, thank you.
Where were we?
What we're talking about is this is a tournament that kind of lends itself to, I'd say, a little bit like Daytona, where it's a crapshoot. Players come out of nowhere to win this tournament. We saw it with Mike Weir. We saw it with
Danny Willett.
Danny Willett and Larry Mize. You guys just come out of nowhere and win this tournament. Ben Crenshaw, who was a great player in his own right.
He won it twice, though. He won it
twice.
Yeah.
The first time, though, yeah. But this course is just set up for guys that have a great week. Is that true?
Well, if you have a great week on the greens, that's normally the case. If you can putt the eyes out, you've got a good chance. But For the most part, though, and you're right, there have been some surprise winners. Zach Johnson was kind of a surprise winner, although he's a borderline Hall of Famer. He's a borderline Hall of Famer, so that's not a big surprise, not as much as Willett and some of the others. But if you have a good week on the greens, but the field is so deep now that there's any number of guys that could win. But again, going back to the point I made earlier, I think this is going to be a Bombers week. This is going to be somebody that can carry it a long way. That's going to have the advantage.
So who do you like? Rory McIlroy's playing well. Matt Kuchar is steady Eddie. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. You got a bomber in DJ Dustin Johnson. Justin Thomas is a bomber. Where do you think this thing goes?
Well, Rory McIlroy's got the added pressure of trying to win the career Grand Slam. But he's my favorite going in. He's playing really, really well. He's had great finishes at the Masters. He's just done everything but win it. Justin Thomas, I think, is a guy that you really got to consider. He's kind of rethought his preparation for the Masters. He used to just grind it out and hit a million balls and practice. Well, this year, last week, he and his family went to the Bahamas and they were fishing and relaxing. So he thinks, resting might be the recipe for him playing well at Augusta National. Phil Mickelson broke his routine this year. He normally was one of the few guys, top-level guys, that plays the week before a major championship, and he didn't do that this year. He didn't play at the Valero Texas Open. So he's bringing a different tactic into the Masters this year. Dustin Johnson has not performed up to his standards so far this year, and his biggest drawback so far has been his putter, and that's not where you want to be struggling going into Augusta National. I mean, you can find something in your ball striking, but you don't want to be struggling with your putter. So it'll be interesting to see if he does find something this week and putts it well, because he's always going to be a favorite around that place. And then, of course, now Tiger Woods comes in, as Dottie told me on my radio show. There's no question mark now surrounding Tiger as far as his health is concerned, and can he win again? Well, he did win late last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what Tiger's able to do.
What about Justin Rose? He's number one ranked player in golf. He's not a steady Eddie guy too, who doesn't make mistakes. I think the key to Augusta is not make mistakes. The way the course is set up now, just don't make mistakes.
He's probably the second favorite, I would think, this week. Justin Rose. He's so steady and has a couple of runner-up finishes at the Masters. So there's another guy to really keep an eye on. And you're right. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And if you can get around that place without making big numbers, you're going to be in the hunt on Sunday.
Would Tony Finau be a dark horse?
I would think so. Yeah, as long as he doesn't jump up and down after making a hole-in-one on today's par 3.
No kidding. I don't want to see that again.
No, that was pretty ugly. But another guy that nobody's talking about because he really hasn't had a lot of success at the Masters, and he didn't even play last year because he was nursing a wrist injury, is Brooks Koepka. He's long and he drives it well, obviously with, the major championships that he's won, a couple U.S. Opens, a PGA championship. If he can drive it well again here, there's a guy that you can't consider him a dark horse, but don't forget about Brooks Koepka. He didn't even play last year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the mix.
No, then you got a guy like Ian Poulter, that guy seems to rise to the occasion on the big moments. I mean, he can't sustain it, but if he can sustain it, I think Ian Poulter comes into play big time.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, and I may be wrong, but I don't think he's one of the longer hitters, and that may come back to bite him a little bit this week if it does indeed play soft all week. And I think, from what I've seen, there is still some rain in the forecast for the rest of the week. So if it plays soft, that might be a hindrance to Ian Poulter. But Paul Casey wouldn't surprise me. He's really playing well. As far as the Europeans go, wouldn't surprise me to see him up there. Francisco Molinari is another guy that people are talking a lot about this week. He's playing great ball striker, great putter. So it's a wide open field, but I would have to say Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose are the two guys that I would consider the favorites.
Okay, so here's a question. Is this a course that kind of favors European players over American players? I don't see Augusta anymore as a typical American course. I don't see it as a European course either. But it seems to me that the Europeans are kind of running this thing right now there. And is this a course that plays more favorable to the bump and run game as opposed to the bomb it long game?
No, I mean, there for a while, back in the 90s, the Europeans were dominating at Augusta National, but not so much anymore. I don't think it favors one over the other. The conditions will probably dictate how you can play it. If it's going to be, if it's going to be wet, it may dictate that you play it one way. If it's hard and fast, it dictates, maybe the bump and run comes into play a little more often because they don't play those kind of conditions over in Europe very often. But I don't think it favors one over the other. The Europeans, a lot of European players are playing really well this year, so that might come into play. But I don't think the course will favor one over the other.
Talk about Patrick Reed. Can he defend?
Sure. I mean, he's not. The guy that's surprising to me that nobody's even talking about is Jordan Spieth. But all you have to do is look at his stats. He doesn't. All you have to do is look at his stats. His best finish is 24th, and that was in the match play, so that's not even a stroke play event. And there's only 64 players in the field. Other than that, I don't think he's finished inside the top 30. His ball striking stats are really poor. His putting is so-so. I mean, his putting last year, his ball striking stats were really good, but his putting was horrible, which is not something you would think you would see out of Jordan Spieth. This year, his putting has really improved, and those stats are back where you would expect, but his ball striking stats have really suffered. So he's still searching for something, and I thought last weekend at the Valero Texas Open was going to be an important weekend for him to try to gain some momentum. After 2 rounds, he was only a couple shots off the lead, but he struggled on the weekend, and I thought that was important for him to play well last weekend to gain some momentum heading into the Masters.
And you look at, and I was going to ask you about Jordan Spieth. That was my next question to ask you: is does he need to change caddies or putters or neither?
No,
it's all fun. Yeah, it's all fun. I mean, we don't make those decisions, so we're all talking in fun. But he's putted poorly.
But his
putting's what kind of killed him.
Yeah, but it's been better
still,
this year.
But it's cream of the crop, basically. If you want to put it that way.
You can't.
He's over the same bag. Same caddy. I mean, I know they're great friends, and I know the story between those two guys, and it's wonderful. But does he need to make a change, or just get his head out of his yin yang?
Yeah, it's a cyclical game. I mean, you go through down periods, and he's going through one now. But there again, he's played so well at Augusta National, he could come out this week and shoot nothing and win another green jacket. So I don't, we're not around him. I can't say that he needs a new caddy or a new putter, or any of that. But he's such a good guy. I wish him well. I hope he does play well because he's good and he's good for the game.
Freddie Couples, he's playing again.
Well, yeah, he loves that place. He hasn't played much on the PGA Tour Champions this year because his back is so fragile. But don't be surprised if at least in the first couple rounds you see Fred's name near the top of the leaderboard because he just loves that place so much, and he's going to play there as long as he possibly can.
There you go. Tiger Woods. I think he's now ranked 12th in the country on the world rankings. He's moving himself back up into the top. Is he still the most important person in golf?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to move the needle, yes, absolutely. Because when he is playing well, everybody in sports, not just the golf world, pays attention. All you have to do is watch ESPN and see what they lead with. If Tiger is leading any tournament, not just a major, they'll lead with Tiger Woods. So yeah, he's still the most important player in golf, just because of the interest that he brings from the casual fan. You and I are going to watch no matter what, but if Tiger's involved, the casual fan's going to watch, and you see that reflected in the ratings when he's in contention. So, yeah, I would say he's still definitely the most important player in golf.
And I was watching your former partner, Scotty Van Pelt, this morning on ESPN, talking about iron play is going to be critical in this tournament. And Tiger's iron play has been very strong. His putting's been weak. His driving is suspect, but his iron play is phenomenal. Is he a legitimate contender in this tournament?
Yeah, but you're not going to find him among the odds makers, yes, because people know they'll bet. I think the odds makers know that people are going to bet for Tiger. But if you talk to the people that are up on tour every week, I don't think they would list him in the top 8 contenders. But you can't put anything. If Tiger drives it well, and find some magic in his putter, absolutely. But I think the key for him this week is driving it well. Even though there's not much rough, there's enough rough. That first cut, as they call it, they don't call it rough at Augusta National.
Yeah.
But the first, it gives you enough of a flyer live, and it's really hard to control your irons into the greens. And even though the greens are going to be damp because the sub-air system is going to suck all the water out of them, it's still going to be important to be in the fairway.
So, and we both have been there. I mean, I've been to Augusta and seen the course. It's a course that really sets up to play right to left. It's really a draw golf course for a right-handed golfer, or a fade golf course for Phil. But is that going to work against Tiger? Because he plays a high fade. Is that going to work against him?
No, I don't think so. He can draw the ball. I just hope he can drive it in the fairway, for his sake. If he can put it in the fairway the way he's hitting his irons and hit it fairly close. And, at Augusta, hitting it close isn't always the goal. It's just putting it in the right quadrant where you've got the best chance to make a putt. That might be 20 feet away. So if he can drive it in the fairway using whatever shot shape, he's going to be in good shape this week. And, it'd be great to see him in contention on Sunday. How good would a Rory McIlroy, Rory McIlroy or Phil Mickelson and a Tiger Woods being in contention on Sunday be?
Yeah, I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think
I don't either. I don't either, but it'd be fun to see. But you never know. Tiger can rise to the occasion.
We'll see. Yeah. All right. Anything else? When you talk about the Masters, what's your prediction? I'm thinking Rory McIlroy. I'm thinking Rory.
Yeah. Rory. Rory's my number 1 pick.
Yeah.
I think Justin Rose would be my number 2 pick. Dark horse, Tony Finau.
Justin Thomas. Tony Finau. Justin Thomas.
No, I wouldn't call Justin Thomas a dark horse, but I'd say Tony Finau would be.
Yeah, he bombs it, and he plays ping irons, which is what I play. So I'm fine with that.
Well, then, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Unfortunately, Rory McIlroy has no chance to win now because Steve Risley picked him. Steve's not real good on predictions. So.
I cannot pick a winner for anything. All right, Brian. Thank you for coming on.
I'm going with Dustin Johnson, by the way.
There you go.
There you go. It's not a bad pick. The guy's capable of doing it.
That's the only name you know?
No, I just Googled who people thought would win, and he was picked second behind Rory McIlroy. So I figure I'm going with it. We'll see what happens.
There you go. All right. It's time for you guys to talk hockey now. So
Steve cannot wait to talk hockey.
I have no idea what we're talking about on hockey. I know nothing
California,
about hockey.
There's no ice anymore. All right, Brian, thank you. You want to tell people where they can find you?
You can find us on, we've got a show that was so creatively named called The Golf Show.
Hey, it fits in perfect with us at our NASCAR show and our Inside Boxing show, and it's best to let people know what you're talking about right away.
Yeah, exactly. So we're The Golf Show. We're on at 8 o'clock in the morning on Wolf Boom Radio, 2 stations, one in Anderson, one in Muncie. Anderson's my hometown, so it's a good time this week. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about the Masters. Marshall I is going to join me from Augusta National to break everything down, and we're going to talk also with Chase Wright, who's a Central Indiana Tour player that is on his rookie year on the PGA Tour. So we'll be talking to him, and a lot of Masters talk. So you can find us on the WHBU or WXFN in
the Grueling Truth. And the GrewingTruth.net, because you now are, on our
That's
website
right.
too, which,
That's right.
You're part of
That'd be
our
good, too.
network, so that's great. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Brian. You're welcome back anytime. And I know Steve gets excited whenever he gets to talk about golf.
Thanks. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks a lot, Brian. All right, guys.
Bye, Brian.
We are going to take a word from our sponsor, which is mybookie.ag. We will be back in 1 minute and 12 seconds with our NHL beat writer, Sam McGinnis. We will be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Goodpaster from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with mybookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out mybookie.ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on mybookie.ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for mybookie.ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit mybookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we're back on the Grueling Truth, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm Mike Goodpaster with 1981 National Champion Steve Risley. And Steve, I know you've always complained that you wanted to hear some hockey talk on Survive in Advance.
I'm picking Tampa Bay. I'm right now. I'm just saying.
Did you just Google the standings and just pick the team with the best record?
Yes, I did.
All right. Lucas Weiss from Canada texted in that he cannot wait to hear you talk about hockey. He's betting you'll be silent. But since Steve doesn't know a whole lot about hockey, we figured we'd bring in our newest addition to the Grueling Truth family, and that's our NHL beat writer. Help me welcome to the show, Sam McGinnis. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All right. Now, so you know, you've never met Steve Risley, but as soon as Steve finds out what your phone number is, he's going to text you a picture of his championship ring because he talks about it all the time. Aren't you, Steve?
Wow. All right.
Mike, you know why I do that? You know why I do that?
Why?
Because I can.
Okay. And
what? There's a good reason.
I sent you pictures of my rings. I've got 6. You've only got 1, but we're not going to bring that
I've
up.
got multiple rings. I got Big Ten rings, championship rings, Hall of Fame rings.
The only thing that matters
is
championship rings. And you still don't have 6, even if you count all those together. But let's go ahead.
There you go.
Let's talk about hockey.
Forward, yeah.
Because
hockey.
I don't think there's anything better to watch than playoff hockey. It's kind of like baseball to me. When it gets to the end and it's the playoffs and the World Series, or with hockey, the playoffs and the Stanley Cup Finals, I don't think there's more intense sport out there. And the playoffs start tonight, and we're going to break down all the series, just a short breakdown. And we're going to start off in the East with the Columbus Blue Jackets, who I think went all in at the trade deadline, but were kind of inconsistent early March. And they ended up finishing last, 8th, out of the playoff spots, and they have to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, who had a record-tying 62 wins during the regular season. Is there any chance for the Blue Jackets here, Sam?
Absolutely not. I know that sounds really, really bleak, but I even didn't like what he did at the trade deadline. John Tortorella, that was just a bad move. They had been mostly consistent until March, and being right around that that deadline rate in late February is when they had been inconsistent. But before that, they had been just fine. And he'd not only traded away their current present, but their future as well, because he traded for a goalie they didn't need. He traded 2 picks and 2 prospects for Matt Duchene, one of which I thought could have really been something had he kept him here. So he's basically destroyed their future. And frankly, the Blue Jackets are a good team, but Tampa Bay beats them in every possible category.
Yeah.
It's like having... It's
when you look at it, Sam, when you look at all the major categories, Tampa really literally beats them in every category. And I know we talked about this off air. And the other thing you can't get by with Columbus is you've got to have great goaltending in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And inconsistent is a kind word for Bobrovsky when it comes to the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, his save percentage, if you look at his all-time playoff stats, they're pretty awful. His save percentage is below 90%. His goals against average is nearing 4, which is ridiculous. He's just, if he can't be consistent, they'll be swept no problem, which he's proven again and again in the playoffs. He chokes. So I personally think Tampa Bay will just wipe right by him.
All right, so when we look at this, do you think it's a 4-game sweep? Is that your prediction?
Yeah. If they win a game, if Columbus wins a game, I'll be happy.
All right. I think you'll be happy. I think they'll win a game, and that's about it. The Tampa Bay team, it's hard to ignore a team that played as well as they did all year, and that consistency, I think, in the playoffs usually shows itself. Now, when we move to the next series, I think the most interesting series of this entire playoffs is Boston against Toronto. And when we look at it, they played last year in the playoffs. I think they played in 2013 in the playoffs. The Bruins won both of those series. The Bruins have to be the favorite here. The Bruins won 3 to 4 games in the regular season. What kind of shot do you give the Maple Leafs? Because I see this being a series that could easily go 7 games.
Oh, absolutely. I actually think the Maple Leafs could win. I don't think they will, but they actually very well could. You know, getting John Tavares, that was very good in the offseason for them. That'll definitely be a big help. But I think the key to this series is actually going to be, oddly enough, defense. Because if you look at it, both these teams have outstanding offenses. They both have great goalies, so there won't be that much of a difference in margin. It'll be which defense can slow down the opposing offense just enough that the other team can win, you know? So it's actually going to be a contest of which defense sucks less.
Yeah, and actually during the regular season, I think Boston's defense was better than Toronto's.
Yeah, which is why I have them winning in 7. If they did apply Jake Muzzin since then, but I think that one player won't be enough to make that kind of a difference they need to against Boston, but it should be a fantastic series.
Yeah, and just for the record, I'm going to pick the Maple Leafs in the upset just because our friend Lucas Weiss, who works up in Canada, likes the Maple Leafs. So I'm picking him for you, Lucas. Next up, we've got the Washington Capitals, the defending Stanley Cup champions, against a bunch of jerks from Carolina. What kind of chance do you think Carolina's got here? Because I think this is one of them. Even though they got swept in the season series, I think the Hurricanes have a legitimate shot to win this series.
I think they could win maybe a game or 2, but
come on, Sam. Not everything's going to be a sweep.
No, it's not. We have to get to the Western Conference for what you're talking about.
Okay.
The thing with my problem with the Hurricanes is they have like 0 playoff experience. All those players are super duper young. Most of them haven't been in the playoffs before, and their goalies until this year have been wildly inconsistent. And once again, most of the categories, the Washington Capitals simply beat them. Like, how do you expect a whole bunch of young kids to beat like Alex Ovechkin and get goals past Braden Holtby? Like, I could see them with the drive that they have win a game or 2, but I couldn't see much more than that.
I could tell you this, though. If you're a young team, it's going to be one or 2 things. You're either overwhelmed by the moment or you're not old enough to realize the situation you're in, if you know what I mean. So I think that sometimes being young and dumb is an advantage. Not always, usually not. But that, and the other thing is this. What kind of effect does it have for Washington that they finally, after all those years of coming up short with great teams, they finally won it last year. So isn't it possible that that younger team may just be hungrier?
They may, but what I watched, I was thinking the same thing when I was coming, because, typically you have that championship where you don't win back-to-backs, because usually you have a slump. But what I watched this year from the Capitals was very, very different. I watched them go from paranoid to very comfortable and therefore actually better as a team. It was very weird. I was expecting them to be like all happy, drunk, go wild, but as I've watched them play 7 different games this year, they won 6 of those, and even the one they lost in overtime. They actually looked a whole lot more comfortable, like they got the monkey off their back, and it looks like they want to be a dynasty.
Yeah. All right. Well, I actually think the Caps will win that series, but I think it will go 7. I think the Hurricanes are going to put up a better fight than what you think. Next up, we've got the New York Islanders against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I think this is another really good matchup. What's your take on this one, Sam?
You said it right. This one I had a very, very tough time picking, because on one end you have Barry Trotz and on the other you have Sidney Crosby. So for me, at the end of the day, I had to pick Sidney Crosby because the difference is playoff consistency. Every time I and other people have underestimated Sidney Crosby, he's always gone much further or even won Stanley Cups that people didn't think he was gonna. And this New York Islanders team, it's really good. Its defense is good. Its goalies is good. But the reason happens to be the coach. But at the end of the day, they can't score goals. And Matt Murray is a good goalie. And on top of it, you have to give Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin the credit. Like, I think this series could go either way, but I think that the Penguins will surprise some people and win Game 7.
Yeah, I think the Penguins will win this series too. And the thing that stands out for me is the Penguins did their normal, played horrible for the first 2 or 3 months, then turned around in the second half. I think that this comes down to be a battle between Pittsburgh's star-studded offense and the Islanders' stingy defense. But in the end, you've got to be able to score goals. So I like the Islanders in 6 or 7 games here also. So we agree again. Risley, are you still there?
I'm listening. I'm learning.
Are you learning anything?
No.
No? Come on, Sam. You got to start teaching better. Risley's a slow learner. He played basketball at Indiana.
Yeah. I guess my only problem, though, like, Barry Trotz is good, but minus last year, he had a bad record against the Pens, and I think that'll come back again this year.
All right.
Especially since he doesn't have Alex Ovechkin. He doesn't have him anymore.
All right, so Western Conference. Who do you like in the West? I mean, we've got, San Jose against the Vegas Golden Knights first up? Who do you like there? Because Vegas was a team that surprised everybody last year.
Yeah, another really, really good series. Like, I'm as much as I hate him because he came from the Pens, Marc-Andre Fleury is one of the best goalies in this generation. So he'll definitely be tough for them to get by, I think.
All right. Now, when you look at this, who do you think is the favorite coming out of the East before we go to the West again? I mean, who do you think comes out of there and plays for the Stanley Cup?
I think the championship will be, or the Eastern Conference Championship will be a rematch of last year, but with a very different outcome with the Lightning coming out.
The Lightning? Okay. That's what Steve picked too. So there you go, Steve.
It's kind of hard not to pick a 62-win team.
Yeah, because usually those teams are won 62 games for a reason. But we have seen, I mean, if you remember NBA-wise, I don't know if you watch a lot of NBA, but you had Golden State who set the record for, the best record in a season, and then they come out and they lose in the finals. You go NFL, the New England Patriots go undefeated and lose in the Super Bowl. So anything can happen when you get to the playoffs. What about Winnipeg and St. Louis?
There's so many. This is what I love about hockey. The parity is real. I think Winnipeg will win this just because they're a better team talent-wise, but I have to give some serious credit to St. Louis. Because if you look at this, at the halfway through the season, they were looking like one of, if not the worst teams in the league, and now they're one of the good playoff contenders. And you're looking at that like, what happened? So they got hungry, and that a drive I have not seen from an NHL team in a while will really help them win a few games. So I'll probably go to 7 games, I think. But Winnipeg is just better, and their goalie is much more consistent than Jake Allen, who has been very inconsistent in the playoffs. So I think because of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think because of that, because goaltending is one of the biggest facets, Connor Hellebuck will come out with his team's win.
All right, now how much does it worry you, though, that the Jets finished the season 14-14-3? They didn't play real well, but I think a big reason for the Jets' slump at the end was the shoulder injury to the young defenseman, Josh Morrissey. It looks like Morrissey will be ready when the season opens. Is that why you don't worry so much about how the Jets kind of dropped off towards the end of the season?
I don't worry too much because I know what they're capable of in the playoffs. I think they could lose game 1, and I think if they do, that'll really be the spark on, like, oh, yeah, it's playoff time. But I know, and I've seen last year, the hunger they've got in the playoffs, and regardless of whether he got better or not, I still think they would have won this series.
All right, now when we move on to Nashville, the Predators will take on the Dallas Stars. Both teams finished the season strong. The Predators went 8-2-1 to conclude the regular season and lock down the top spot in the Central. The Stars were 5-1-1 in their final 7 games. Nashville, I think, has the home ice here. Where do you see this series going?
This is where I was talking about you got to wait till the West for me to get to the upsets. I actually am picking Dallas for this one.
Ooh. Now, the Predators, they finally got a healthy PK Subban. Forsberg, I mean, all these guys are healthy now. Does that play any effect in here? Do you think because they've been out for a while that maybe that'll affect them?
No, they're good enough players that when they come back, like after Tom Brady got injured, for instance, coming back to football, like he did things the next season after he had gotten injured. The players of that stature typically, when they get injured, come back very strong. That's actually not why I am picking the Stars.
Why are you picking the Stars then? I think the Predators win this in like 5 or 6 games.
I'm not saying that couldn't happen. Anytime you don't pick the chalk, there's always a good chance you could be wrong. But the reason I picked the Stars is, first off, Ben Bishop. Goaltending is one of the biggest, most important things when it comes to the NHL playoffs. And when I see Ben Bishop versus Pecorine, I have one big issue.
Yeah.
Ben Bishop is going to be the Vezina Trophy winner, and Pecorine has proved 2 seasons in a row now that he is a choke job in the playoffs. I mean, how do you get pulled on home ice in the Stanley Cup Finals?
By playing really bad, Sam. See? But I like Nashville because I think their uniforms are pretty. No, I'm just kidding. That's what Steve always says, though. All right, next up, we got the Calgary Flames versus the Colorado Avalanche. On paper, the Flames.
Hey, wait! I had a question.
Yeah.
Isn't Carrie Underwood married to one of the Nashville Stars hockey players? Is that true or not?
Sam, Steve loves reality TV, so you're going to have to answer the question.
Carrie Underwood is not reality TV. She's a
dude. She got famous because she was on American Idol, Steve. She's a reality TV star. Now she's a country music star.
She's married.
But you only know about her because she was on American Idol. Just admit it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. But is she married to one of the Nashville Predators?
I don't pay that much attention to who they're married to, just how they play.
God, dadgummit. See, you don't live in Los Angeles. We have different thought processes.
No. Yeah. On the West Coast in California, the world is a completely different place
Who's
and
married
a different
to who?
thought press.
Who's divorcing who? Exactly, yeah.
Well, she was married, I believe, to Mike Fisher, who did play for the Predators, but I don't think he does anymore.
Okay.
So you were close, Steve. He was a Predator at one point, though. All right.
There you go.
Steve?
So I'm rooting for that team. I'm rooting for Carrie Underwood.
So, Steve, do you have any? What do you think about the Calgary Flames and the Colorado Avalanche, Steve? Since you wanted to talk.
Yep.
right. When you look at this series, I think this is Calgary, and I think this is one that I think is going to be a sweep, Sam.
I don't know. I'd put it in 5. I'd have Calgary Colorado winning a game. If they win 2, they'll be really lucky, but I think they'll win 1.
Yeah, and I think here the player to watch is Calgary's goalie, Mike Smith.
Oh, oh man. Yeah, so that is my one problem with Calgary winning a Stanley Cup this year, goaltending.
Yeah, mine too. That's why I brought it up. Let's see.
I don't trust Mike Smith because if you look year by year, he is inconsistent, but within a year, he is consistent. But it's whether he's consistently bad or good within
my
the year.
My question is this. I'm just figuring they go with him because he has playoff experience where David Rittich doesn't really have that experience.
I personally think that would be a catastrophic decision because of the season Mike Smith has had. He's not had an abysmal season, but his save percentage is under 90%, which is pretty terrible. And frankly, David Rittich is super hungry because he's a young player, and he's proving he's being like average goaltending right now, which is better than Mike Smith. Personally, I think you play the better, whoever's doing better regardless of playoff experience.
Yeah. All right, so who do you think comes out of the West?
Ooh. Now you've got me really really hard because there's a ton of good teams. The only difference here is that it's a lot tighter than it is in the East. In the East, I can say that it's either going to be Tampa Bay or Washington with some serious confidence. I think the team that is most likely or is most complete to come out of the West is the Sharks. Whether they will or not, it's going to be tight.
All right. So who do you think is going to win the Masters, Sam?
I know nothing about golf because it's boring.
Oh, Steve, he called your favorite sport boring.
There you go. Whatever. To each his own. That's all I can say. I'm not going to pick on anybody.
You're not going to pick?
Enough.
That's a first. All right, Sam. Thanks for coming on. And what we'll do is, when the first round is over, maybe we'll bring you back and we'll preview the second round a little bit. And maybe Steve will watch some hockey in between then and there, and he can join in on the conversation.
All right.
Right, Steve?
I'll give it a shot. Where can I find hockey on TV? Is that on NBC Sports Network?
Yeah, so
it'll be on
Sports
NBC,
Network.
NBCSN, USA. They got it on a lot.
NHL Network. Yeah, it's on all the time. Golf's only on once a week.
And I'd say, actually, of all the sports that run their own businesses, I think NHL does, because they're sold out every game. I mean, you can't hardly get a seat to a hockey game no matter where you are. And the franchises, wherever they put one, do phenomenally well. They monitor themselves. They manage themselves very well. And hockey gets it right, I think, more than any other sport of the major league sports that we have, baseball, football, and basketball. Hockey does it best, and they always have. They don't overexpose themselves. And, I'll watch Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, I'll end up watching it because it's a great venue. It's a great sport. And there's some of the best athletes in the world. Geez, I've ice skated before, and that's hard to do. And I
couldn't imagine you 6'8", your big butt out there ice skating. You ever see anybody 6'8" ice skate, Sam?
I'm sorry, what?
I said Steve's like 6'8". You ever seen somebody 6'8" try to ice skate?
Chara?
It doesn't work.
Hockey's one of those sports where if you're under 6 foot tall, it's actually an advantage. And the other thing is, Steve talked about that, and I think the reason that you see the decline in a lot of sports in attendance, Sam, is that it's better to stay home and watch it on your HD TV. But I know this from going just to Cincinnati Cyclones games, that hockey, I think, is a sport that is actually better to watch in person than it is on TV.
Oh, absolutely. Again, even though the game was terrible, I was at a game earlier this year for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were playing the Lightning. The speed you don't see on TV, you see at the stadium. And the energy specifically from the fans, I think, are just more passionate than most other sports. It's crazy. It's definitely an experience you should go to.
Yeah, because NBA is a sport where players change teams so much. A lot of guys just become fans of certain players, where in NHL, I don't think you have as much player movement, but I think that those fans are more committed to their teams than a lot of NFL and NBA fans are.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. One of the biggest reasons I love the NHL is because it is a team sport. You cannot have even someone like Alex Ovechkin, and if you don't have a team, you're going to lose because even the best star players only play like half the game. You got to have a full team. The only person that stays on the ice the whole time, if he doesn't get pulled, is the goaltender.
Yeah, and
go
ahead, Steve.
Mike, you talked about this. NHL, I love this conversation. I've listened to it all. But NHL is probably the one sport where we just spent 30 minutes talking more about teams than players. And how many other times do we do that? You know, we did the first part of the show with, you know, Nowitzki and guys retiring. We talked about players. But the NHL, as he's saying, is a sport where you talk about the teams because Sam is so right. It's the teams that make the difference. And that I think that's what's great about NHL hockey. I mean,
yeah, and that's why you get
I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
That's why you get a sold-out 20,000 people there because the people fall in love with the team, not necessarily the player.
Right. But we have not talked hardly about any single player as much as we've talked about the teams. And I think that's a real testament to what the NHL has done and kept themselves in check. So good for them.
Yeah, and I think this with hockey, Sam's brought up the goalie. The goalie is probably the most important guy because we know that if the goalie is hot, Sam, you got a chance to win any game you play, and you can win any series. And I think that's why you see a lot more upsets in like the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs than you ever see in the NBA.
Yeah, like, again, players like Ben Bishop, I didn't get to this, but one of the reasons he's been good is because his defense is even better than the Predators' defense. It's just that combination between the defense and Ben Bishop, that's going to be deadly.
All right, and I think you see the same thing in baseball, Steve, where 1973, the Reds win like 97 games. The Mets are barely 500, but they had Seaver and Koosman. Kind of the same thing. If you got a hot pitcher there, you got a hot goalie in hockey, you always got a shot.
I would think Jim Craig is my favorite hockey player of all time.
Oh, I can tell you this. Hockey, I used to love hockey. I was a Rangers fan, but the thing that made me love hockey was 1980 and the Olympic hockey team. And the problem is now with the professionalism in the Olympics, you'll never get that again to the extent of what it was. But Jim Craig, Mike Eruzione, all those guys I grew up watching, and still to this day, that was the favorite sports moment I've ever seen. And, I mean, my main sports are probably football, baseball, basketball, and boxing. But hockey always holds a special place for me just because of that Friday night in Lake Placid in 1980.
Agreed, 100%.
But, all right, Sam, we want to thank you for coming on. We'll have you on again before the second round starts. So just hang out here with us. When we get off the air, we'll talk to you for a minute, and then we'll let you go. But, Steve, you got any final words?
Enjoyed the learning experience. Thank you, Sam, very much. I don't know much about hockey, but I learned a lot. So I'll know more next time we talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, I want to remind you at 2 o'clock, you can hear me and Bobby Sheridan on the Sheridan Report. We will have your top plays for today. We're going to talk a little J.R. Richard for the On This Day today. Tonight at 11 o'clock, Inside Boxing Daily will be back. And then tomorrow on Survive and Advance, we'll have Max Liplister, who is an NFL agent. He'll be on then. Friday, Cole Hanna, our NBA beat reporter, will be on with Bobby Sheridan to preview the NBA playoffs. So we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up now. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, basically any place you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So I want to thank Sam McGinnis, Brian Hammons, Steve Risley. I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.